Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is Maverick News, and I'm here with my co-host,
Brandon Kennedy, co-host here at Maverick News. Good evening. Happy Friday, everybody. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back, and it's good that it's just good that we're still alive, and I guess that's the main thing, right? Given the way the world has been turned upside down. A lot of stuff on tap, stacked show, all kinds of things to talk about. The UN Security Council was looking at Russian evidence of the biolabs in Ukraine, which were supposed to be a conspiracy theory, but now aren't a conspiracy theory. They are real, but the United States is still in denial, even after they admitted that they were funding them, but now they say they aren't what they think they are, and it's just really kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
So the UN Security Council dealing with that today, looking at the evidence. We have some highlights from what was said there for you. And what else do we have going on today, Brendan?
Well, our good old Uncle Joe, Uncle Sleepy Joe, he's up to his old tricks where he's engaging TikTokers to start the propaganda war in regards to everything that's happening in Ukraine. So we've lined up some content here, some TikToks, and we're going to try and see if we could trigger Mr. Rick Walker. So I know how much you guys like it when Rick gets mad. I did my best to find some of the ones that would probably make him the maddest. So we'll have to see.
Are you trying to get me to rant?
Maybe.
Well, the propaganda wars are heating up, and a lot of what is going on there is not just about propaganda, but also about censorship.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll probably talk a little bit about what our prime minister has been doing in that regard, legislation surrounding all of that, plus the doublespeak surrounding Bill C-67 in the province of Ontario in Canada. And we have Jordan Peterson issuing a warning today about that. So we will share that with you as well, because I think Jordan Peterson is one of the great intellects of our time. And when he issues a warning about something, I think we would be wise to listen. And it's something that has been on my radar for a while. Bill C-67, critical race theory, and the thing that's on my list of concerns and on my radar constantly is this Orwellian doublespeak that Justin Trudeau has mastered, that these political extremists are also making use of every day to push through legislation that is not what it seems, and to attack people using lawfare through public relations, propaganda, doublespeak, newspeak, as it was called in George Orwell's 1984. So we'll look at all of that. Bill C-67, something I think we all need to really look at closely. It's very, very dangerous.
And it's not really something that just applies to Ontario, because this is what they're doing all over the place. Whether you live in the United States, whether you live in Canada, doesn't matter what province you live in, they're doing these same kind of tactics all over the globe.
In fact, that's what we'll hear when we listen to what Jordan Peterson says.
Yes.
He will tell us that if this legislation is passed in Ontario, every other province is likely to fall into line and do a very similar thing. And of course, it just spreads, right? Like cancer. So you're going to want to stick around and listen to what he has to say. What else do we have on the go?
Well, let's
So
see
many
that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Ukraine, of course, and the truckers. The People's Convoy continues. And today, well, let's go to the live feed, shall we?
Let her rip.
We have live feeds coming out of there right now.
I know, guys. I've been trying to run from the cold.
So yeah, you can just see it's they're, if you will, holding the line, right? And today, when they made their way around the Beltway again, it's my understanding that they were led today by people who were there in cars. So they let them take the lead today, and the trucks fell in behind that. But as we pointed out yesterday, the convoy is now so large that when they're single file, they literally stretch all the way around Washington, D.C. in a circle. And the beginning of the convoy, by the time they get to the end point, they're meeting the other end of the convoy. So they make a full lap, a complete circle. They're completely encircling Washington, D.C. now when they're there, and they're right now just being entirely lawful. They're being diplomatic, I guess is the word they're using.
Yeah.
They're not going right into Washington, D.C. at this point. They're just trying to make their presence known, trying to get politicians to pay attention and listen to them. They don't want a repeat of what happened in Ottawa, where the cops came in and like a paramilitary force or a goon squad busted up the peaceful protest using rubber bullets, batons, trampling people with horses, pushing people over, arresting hundreds of people.
Treading on our bouncy castles.
Yeah. So they don't want that to happen to these guys don't want that to happen. They like to avoid that. They don't, they're trying to avoid giving their political opponents, our political opponents, the opponents of the people, the anti-freedom movement, any excuse, any way to
donation links. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do.
any ammunition to smear them, because in Canada that's what we've seen: outright fabrications, complete lies, calling the truckers racists, Nazis, extremists,
Creating
and
emergencies that don't exist.
yeah, and of course accusations that they were there to overthrow the government of Canada. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, and his national security advisor yesterday saying that they were definitely there to overthrow the government, which is of course a load of what. And they just don't want any of that to happen. They don't want a repeat of January 6th down here. They're just not going to give them any ammunition. And they didn't give them any ammunition in Ottawa, other than the fact that they were parked on the streets, which might, be a bylaw infraction, just, minor things like that. But anyway, you all have the picture. This is kind of a holding pattern right now, where they're, at Hagerstown Speedway. That's where they're staged again tonight. They're holding the line, if you will, and they will be at this location for at least another, the better part of a week. And then they may be moving to another location after that, and reestablishing, I guess, their base camp or staging area. So we'll keep on following them. Nothing really, major out of there today. As I say, this is basically them holding the line at this point. So we'll just keep tabs on it. When major developments are emerging, we'll keep you up to date.
Absolutely, it is picking up a little bit of steam as we had seen. Ted Cruz has gotten involved, and one other senator. What was his name there, Rick?
Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson. He's been involved. I mean, could be a matter of time before more get on board. It is highly unlikely that we'll see any operatives out of the Democrat Party get involved. Even though representatives from this convoy are telling us that most individuals here are apolitical and that they are just more or less worried about freedom. That's all
Yeah.
they want.
Well, they're trying to reach out to people across the political spectrum. They don't
Yeah.
care if you're on the left or the right. They don't care whether you're Democrat, Republican. They don't care about your skin color. They don't care about your religion. They don't care about any of that. They're fighting for everyone's freedoms, for their rights, for our rights, and not just for U.S. citizens or Americans, but really for people around the world, and I think especially in Canada, where they were inspired by, the Canadian truckers inspired this convoy and demonstration in the U.S. And I think that's part. I think these guys are fighting for Canada.
Yeah.
Because the government did strike quite a blow to the truckers and the freedom movement up here, and they're still going after the truckers. They're using everything at their disposal to attack, shut down, cancel, crush the truckers, their political opponents, and that's what is really going on. This is political. It's not if this was about people's health, I think the approach would be much, much different. But this is political. At least
Very much.
It is.
Very much so.
That's the truth.
I would say even in Canada, what started off as not being really political at all, the government turned it political and the media turned it political. As we had stated before, anytime you're looking up articles for the Freedom Convoy in Canada, it all comes up under the politics sections under pretty much all the major news organizations. They turned it political.
And they're suffering as well because gas prices, diesel fuel prices are through the roof. All of that is related to Ukraine, which ties, this demonstration into what is going on in Ukraine and with Russia and world fuel supplies and fuel pricing. And, of course, all the propaganda that comes with all of that. So with that, maybe we can shift gears and, we do have a lot of other really important things to bring to you tonight, including Jordan Peterson's warning about this critical race theory legislation. But before we get into that, let's touch on what you kind of teed up there, Brendan, with these social media influencers, these TikTokers that the Biden administration is tapping into to deliver the Biden administration's message or their propaganda. What have you got lined up for us?
Well, I will take you down the rabbit hole that I started with this afternoon. I've got it. It starts with an article here, and then it goes into some TikTok videos I'd found. So I have the article queued up here. We'll go over that briefly. Oop, that's the wrong tab. There we go. Yeah, that's it. Okay. White House is briefing TikTok stars about the war in Ukraine. This is the Washington Post. On Thursday afternoon, 30 top TikTok stars gathered on Zoom on a Zoom call to receive key information about the war unfolding in Ukraine. National Security Council staffers and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki briefed the influencers about the United States' strategic goals in the region and answered questions on distributing aid to Ukrainians, working with NATO, and how the United States would react to a Russian use of nuclear weapons. As the crisis in Ukraine has escalated, millions have turned to TikTok for information on what is happening there in real time. TikTok videos offered some of the first glimpses of the Russian invasion, and since then, the platform has been a primary outlet for spreading news to the masses abroad. Ukrainian citizens hiding in bomb shelters or fleeing their homes have shared their stories to the platform, while dangerous misinformation and Russian propaganda have also spread. I mean, begs the question, I bet you they were all talking about the ghosts of Kiev on there too, right? So, And TikTok stars, many with millions of followers, have increasingly sought to make sense of the crisis for their audiences. The White House has been closely watching TikTok's rise as a dominant news source and leading to its decision to approve a select group of the platform's most influential names. This week, the administration began working with Gen Z for Change. Now, this is the key point here that we all need to look at. Gen Z for Change, a nonprofit advocacy group to help identify top content creators on the platform to orchestrate a briefing aimed at answering questions about the conflict and the United States' role in it. Victoria Hammett, Deputy Executive Director for Gen Z for Change, contacted dozens with invitations via email and gathered for potential questions for the Biden administration. So it goes on like this, and you kind of get the picture that this Gen Z for Change, now what is that? And when I looked it up, I just about got sick to my stomach, because if you don't know what this is yet, you're going to want to, and it makes you wonder how deep this stuff goes. And here it is, Gen Z for Change. I'm sure you already get the picture based off of the colors on here. Who are we? Gen Z for Change is a nonprofit organization leveraging social media to promote civil discourse and political action among our generation. Partnering with influencers, activists, and celebrities, we produce multimedia content on a variety of topics, including COVID-19, climate change, systemic inequity, foreign policy, voting rights, and LGBTQIA+ issues. So, what it is it's woke, and what it is it takes money from woke people and the government to spread woke ideologies. It says here, what we do...
like a political action group.
That's exactly what it is.
Propaganda group. But more than that, continue.
Yeah, so it says what we do, we educate our peers through timely explainer content about the news, legislation, and pressing issues that we care about. We encourage civic participation and mobilize our audience by keeping them informed and politically aware year-round. We encourage our audience to take action when appropriate through donations, calls to Congress, and voting in municipal elections. We shift the political debate by flooding TikTok with engaging progressive content that hits more FYPs than our opponents. We also only promote issues, organizations, and topics that we, as young progressives, support. We aim to shift the conversation left by engaging more young voters and progressive ideologies.
So we got the idea. So do we know how much money they get from the government, or do we have a breakdown on their funding?
So I did put in a request for a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA request, if you will, to determine their funding, and they have not provided that to me yet. So it could be in the very near future we do. But these are the people who are funding this. It's the White House, the Biden-Harris campaign, MTV, Institute of Politics, in the media. All these media organizations support them. And it is just absolutely disgusting, and it's absolutely toxic. This is what we're talking about when there's an information war going on. These are the people here that are collectively getting together in huge numbers to influence the political sphere.
See what it's like that, especially in Canada too. These organizations put themselves out there as though they are community based, or even if it's at a national or international level, but they're there to push a particular political point of view. They're an action group, a political action group. This is a propaganda machine is what it is. And people donate to it because they convince people, of course, that their cause is the right one. But they also get government money. So when these kinds of groups are active, even if you don't support them, maybe, like, I wouldn't donate to them, obviously, because they're promoting political ideology that I don't agree with, largely. And they use a lot of doublespeak. But this is the current trend, right? It's all left wing. It's Marxist ideology. It's cultural Marxism. It is woke ideology. It is identity politics in full force. It is critical race theory. It is support for everything woke, everything left, everything extreme. And obviously I have a lot of issues with those things, but we have groups like this in Canada as well as in the United States and in other countries around the world. And people, I don't think, are aware that a lot of the money they get, it's tax dollars. So whether you like it or not, you're helping to fund this. And these groups are powerful because they are online. They engage. They have a big budget behind what they're doing. And it's their job to influence people. It's a propaganda machine. That's exactly what it is. And that's, I'm very uncomfortable with the way that these groups operate because they receive government funding.
Yes, absolutely. And the best part is most of the people who participate in this group probably have no understanding of what they're pushing. And when I was on TikTok today, you see a lot of comments where people have like hammer and sickle pictures for their display picture in the comments. It's like clearly the communists are like going to this in droves. And just look at some of the things that they've done. So TikTokers spam Virginia GOP governor's tip line for snitching on teachers. The Virginia Department of Education is getting flooded with memes after creating a tip line to report schools teaching about racism. TikTokers launched spam site to curb Glenn Youngkin's racist snitch school tip line.
What was that? It was a racist snitch line?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Mark Rand wants to know if I'm right, left, or don't tell me, you atheist. I'm going to keep you guessing.
Ooh. Mysterious.
You're going to have to watch and figure it out. Sonia says billions to keep idiots talking nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I had some PTSD from when they got this coalition together. I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago when the vaccines came out, and they engaged all these people to start making propaganda about the vaccines, some of which I will reveal very shortly here. We could take a look at what these people believe and what they're actually pushing out to young people. And some of it is actually pretty gross.
I'm sorry, Brandon. I shouldn't have put that one up. Or maybe I should.
That's okay. Ringo.
You do look pretty cool, though, man.
Thanks.
You know what the word is for you today? Fab. You look fab.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, just like it's very that's very
No,
Beatlesy.
that's you, like with your shirt there, I think.
That's yeah, yeah. I'm looking pretty woke, metrosexual. I have my metrosexual shirt on.
Oh God.
At least we
You're
can
gonna have
laugh
to
at
start
ourselves.
consulting me before you
Yeah,
get
fashion
dressed.
consultant.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway,
with that being
well,
said,
powerful groups, lots of money behind them. Now they're working to influence people and on the issue in Ukraine, the
yep.
conflict there. So the Biden administration is going to crank it up, ramp up the propaganda through Gen Z for change. So this is aimed at the youth, obviously, primarily with this organization. So this is sort of the Biden youth, the Biden equivalent of the Hitler youth.
I would say the ideology is really deep, and I mean,
See, I told you, Miss Jensky agrees. Brendan, you're fab today.
oh God.
Fab, Brendan.
You're gonna drive me to quit, Rick Walker. So, without further ado, let's look at the end product of this organization. And let's start with this one. All right, let's roll.
Okay, here we go.
So this person here, she's one of the executive directors for the organization, and her name is Victoria Hammett.
So I've seen a lot of videos about what to do if there's nuclear fallout, which don't worry, there will not be nuclear fallout. Everything's okay. But in a hypothetical situation where there was, the best advice is for everyone to stay inside their homes for at least 24 hours, trying to, ideally stay inside your home and not go outside for anything for about a week if you can. Do y'all think Republicans are gonna... No, they wouldn't, would they? Do you think they're gonna be like... It's my right to go outside. Nuclear fallout doesn't exist. They're lying about the death rate. My daughter has a beautiful face that has not seen the outdoors in 24 hours. This is communism. So I've seen a lot of videos about what to do if there's nuclear fallout, which don't worry, there will not be nuclear fallout. Everything's okay.
Are you trying to trigger me? Just so people understand, I haven't seen these before. I'm not on TikTok.
I did it for work purposes. I got TikTok so that you guys don't have to. So, what are your thoughts on that one there? They've attended a White House meeting, and one of the things that they're walking away from. Don't worry, we won't get nuked. But if we do...
Well, I think it shows how stupid she is. I think it shows how bigoted and narrow-minded she is. I think it just illustrates further how their political ideology breeds intolerance and hate. And she clearly harbors hatred for people who don't share her political views. She doesn't care about conservatives or Republicans. She wants to mock them. I think that making light of the possibility of a nuclear conflict is dangerous because I think that we are facing, as I've said before, we're closer to that now than we've ever been in history. And they're trying to downplay it. I think that today's generation doesn't understand how serious a nuclear conflict would be. They don't have any idea because they've been living with, or living under the shadow of nuclear weapons for so long. And that I don't think that today's generation was taught adequately about the dangers of it in school or even at home. So I think it's lost on them. The power and the destructive power that would be unleashed, they can't imagine. And this woman is dangerous and stupid and hateful.
Yeah.
And that message is being funded with your tax dollars. And that kind of messaging brings us closer to a nuclear conflict because it treats it in such a flippant way. Don't worry, we're not going to, there won't be any nuclear fallout. But if there is, I'll tell you this, if there is a nuclear conflict, I don't think there will be many homes left to stay in for a week in any area where there's any kind of population. And those of us who do survive may wish that we hadn't, because there will be nuclear fallout, and the survivors will, many of them will die slow, painful deaths from radiation poisoning, cancers. And
I mean, let's be real. The poisoning, the fallout gets into everything. It gets into the water, gets into the ground, gets into the animals that you would have to eat.
It contaminates the milk in the cows. You know, even if you get fresh milk from the cows, the milk absorbs the radiation. It gets into everything. It contaminates everything, and it stays there for like a long time. It takes decades for the half-life of the radiation. I'm not an expert on the science behind it, but I know that you can't live there for quite a while without being exposed to the radiation, and you get mutations, you get cancers, all kinds, leukemias, horrific. And as we pointed out before, what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki when those two bombs were dropped, that's nothing compared to what would be unleashed today.
We have hundreds
weapons
of more
up to 1,000 times more powerful than those bombs. Say goodbye to LA. Say goodbye to New York City. They won't exist anymore. That's how serious this is. And these people are like, don't worry about it. There won't be any nuclear fallout. These people are insane.
Yeah.
I think they, honestly, Brendan, I think they want a nuclear conflict.
I think they do too, to be honest. And don't worry, it gets even better, the things that this group funds. So if you guys thought that was bad, this one's even better.
And you know what? It's kind of even stupid. All you have to do is stay at home for at least a week. Then everything will be fine. No, it won't.
Just be great. Be awesome.
January 21st, a bill was introduced into California's vaccine caucus that, if passed, would allow children 12 years old and older to receive vaccinations without their parents' permission. This is a hugely important piece of legislation that could allow over 900,000 unvaccinated Californian youth to receive their COVID-19 vaccines. Some people may see this as radical, but bills like this have been passed in several states already. In fact, the minimum age to get vaccinated in Alabama without parental consent is just 14 years old. Scott Wiener, the senator who introduced this bill, said that kids deserve to protect themselves, and that this would be providing young people with autonomy to receive life-saving vaccines regardless of their parents' beliefs. This is a big step in not only combating COVID-19, but also reinforcing that young people deserve bodily autonomy. On January 21st, a bill was introduced into California.
So, taking away parental consent for vaccinations for people 14 and yeah.
Where do these people get off talking about bodily autonomy as it relates to the COVID vaccines?
Yeah.
When all they've done is take bodily autonomy away from people by forcing people to get vaccinated or lose their jobs or not be able to fly or cross a border or do a myriad of other things or even participate in society unless you get vaccinated. They've been coercing people into taking this vaccine that isn't bodily autonomy. Then this girl sits there and says that this is a step toward ensuring bodily autonomy. And it's like, hooray, parents don't get any say in what happens with their kids. You can let a 14-year-old decide for themselves.
And it's not extreme because other states have already done it. So therefore, it's
fine then.
It's fine. You notice the language she used there? It's not extreme because other states have already done this. Like, what the hell is that?
It's more doublespeak again. Like, there you go, right? It's like she uses the word bodily autonomy as though it's a really good thing, which it is. You should have control over your own body. But when you're a kid, when you're not an adult, and you haven't had enough life experience or education, and you haven't even had time to form your own value systems thoroughly, you need guidance from your parents. Mm-hmm. And parents should have control over what you can and can't do. And it has to be an evolution over time, whether kids get to make these kinds of decisions. And to have the government strip or take the parent out of the equation that way is absolutely wrong. But it falls in line with what these radical left-wing Marxists and fascio-communists believe, which is that they want the family unit destroyed. They don't want families to exist anymore. They want your children. They want control of your children, and they want them vaccinated. So whatever your position is on that, I don't know, but I'm against that. I'd rather have the parents involved and parents helping guide their children than Joe Biden, who can't even seem to put his pants on the right way in the morning.
No, that's absolutely it. And that's not the first time I've seen anything like that. I've seen other platforms and talking heads that are outright endorsing it. Just go and get it. It's fine. It's great. I believe the person who brought that to my attention was Cindy Watson. She has an absolutely great channel. I like watching her content. But she does point out, like, there's several of these communist liberal types that are telling your kids, just get the vaccine regardless of what your parents think.
I got to tell you though, your new look is a hit. People keep commenting that this whole thing has started now, Brendan, and they're into it, man. Like, they like it. It's the whole Beatles thing. I think you're a trendsetter.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're going to be a TikTok fashion influencer, bringing back the Fab Four look with your mop top and Brendan Mania.
I got to tell everybody. So I mean, I just haven't gotten my haircut because I was waiting for freedom to come back.
Oh well, don't just it suits you.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
And for all you ladies out there, I think that he's available too. So
yeah, you know what? I don't think you've been pissed off enough yet. So we need to
not yet. Keep working.
Keep working. All right. So back to, you're gonna love this one. Here it is, folks. This is what your tax dollars is going towards.
How fucking stupid can you be? Like, genuinely, this is not rhetorical. I'm asking you a question. How fucking stupid can you be? How many times do we have to learn this lesson? The Stagecoach and Coachella organizers were really like, oh, we're throwing a massive event that will attract hundreds of thousands of people from all over the fucking country. Let's not require any vaccines or anything. Let's make sure that people get COVID and bring it fucking home with them. Shit like this will destroy any progress that we have made. This will undoubtedly threaten the lives of thousands of unvaccinated people and thousands of vaccinated people who are disabled. What a fucking perfect time to do this. It's not like there's hospital staff shortages or fully booked ICUs. Even if you don't give a fuck about public health, which number one, fuck you for that. Do you know what this is going to do? All the concerts you want to go to, they will be canceled. You like not wearing a mask in a grocery store? Guess what you're going to have to put back on? Your favorite celebs that are planning on going to or hosting this event, their fan bases aren't going to be happy about this. So hate to break it to you, but they probably won't show up. From a public health standpoint, this is pure evil. And even from an event organizing standpoint, this is so stupid. How fucking stupid can you be?
I highly doubt that people are just not going to show up to the event. I mean, we just had the Super Bowl in California, of all places, that was locked, stocked to the rafters, filled with people. And yeah, look, somebody just commented there, potty mouth. I absolutely agree.
I think she needs help.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about what she said. She's just an idiot. That's it. And I apologize to all the folks at home for subjecting you to that. Let's move on. Let's move on.
One more. We need to make the point. This is what tax dollars is going for, man. Tax dollars is paying for this.
You know what the real problem is? I went to the grocery store today, and I looked around, and I saw one other person in the store other than me not wearing a mask. And then I went out and, and the place was packed because it's a Friday. And I thought, are we ever going to find a way out of this? The mask mandates are going to be dropped soon. Then I go into the parking lot, and I see people wandering around outside wearing their masks. They're all alone, and they're in their cars wearing their masks even now. And here, where I live, the mask mandate's going to be dropped completely in, another week or two or so. Like, hello, folks. It's like Zombieland out there, man. I try not to go out too much because I don't want to expose myself to the stupidity that is out there. And it's just depressing as hell. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I'm not afraid of catching the virus. If it happens, it happens, right? Like, it's out there, I guess, whatever. I'm afraid of I'm just afraid of stupid people.
Those people.
I'm afraid of stupid people. I just try to stay away. And girls like that. I just try to stay away from them. Just trying to stay away. I can't take it much more. Yeah, wear a mask if you want. Go ahead. Like, I didn't, and that's the thing. That was like the reporter asking Ontario Premier Doug Ford, was it 2 days ago when they announced the dropping the mask mandates in Ontario, Canada, right? He's like, are you worried that people who wear masks might be harassed by people, by anti-maskers? They're not going to be harassed by anti-maskers. If you want to wear your mask, like, go ahead. Knock yourself out. If you feel like you're protected riding around in your car by yourself wearing a mask, go ahead. You want to sleep with it at night, alone, at home, in your own bedroom, because you're afraid the boogie virus is going to come and get you in the middle of the night? Go ahead. You know what? I understand why people are afraid. I understand why they're walking around on the street wearing a mask. It's because they see that picture of the cartoon virus thing everywhere, like that graphic depiction of a virus.
Yep.
And they've shown it like in the air, right outside, like a graphic representation of the virus is out there. They think that it's just floating around out in the air outside, and if they just breathe, they could just breathe it in. It doesn't quite work that way, folks.
No, it doesn't.
But if you want to, go ahead.
Well, I pointed it out once before, and I'll point it out again. A mask is considered personal protective equipment. It is not considered everybody protected equipment. It only means it's going to protect you. And we all know that, like, people who have masks, like, I've seen people literally wearing masks that probably created the next strain of the virus, just absolutely filthy, and putting it on their face. It's not doing anybody any favors.
Again, I just with the whole narrative on the masking thing, it's like they've turned everything upside down. It's like they've made your health my responsibility, and they want to make my health your responsibility. And then they say, if you don't wear the mask, you're being selfish because you could make someone else sick. But I don't have the virus. I'm not sick. So I'm not going to make anyone sick with the COVID if I don't have it, whether I'm wearing a mask or I'm not. And in my view, I believe that there's nothing more selfish than requiring the entire freaking world to wear a mask, every, billions of other people to wear a mask, or billions of other people to stay home.
Yeah.
So that you feel safe, so that you feel protected. It's up to you to protect yourself. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead. If you're afraid that the virus is going to get you when you go to the grocery store, then don't go to the grocery store. Get someone to go shopping for you or find some other way. Like, that's up to you. I'm not afraid. I'm quite happy to go. And even Brendan, even if there was radioactive fallout, okay? And I wanted to go outside because I felt I had to or wanted to. I think it should be my right to go out into the radioactive fallout if I damn well want to. Because that's about me. And if I want to expose myself to radioactive fallout because I feel like I have to, I don't know, go out and cut the grass. Right? Because maybe
that's a terrible example, but
because when you expose grass to radiation, it really grows fast. And if I don't cut the grass, my wife gets really upset when it gets like past a certain length. And I'd rather deal with the radioactive fallout than deal with her wrath. I gotta tell you. So, yeah, maybe I need to cut the grass when there's radioactive fallout, but that's my choice. I don't ask me to stay at home and lock myself down and wear a mask and not go outside for an entire week just to make you feel safe. My grass needs to get cut and trimmed.
That's just it, right? I can't stand when everybody started saying your freedoms end where my safety starts, or whatever the hell that slogan was.
Your rights end where my rights begin, or something.
Something about safety, something or other.
Absolutely. That's right. Your rights end. My rights. How does that saying go? Your rights. It's so stupid.
It is so stupid.
Your rights end where my rights begin. How about this? I don't even think people who say that even understand what the hell that means.
Mm-hmm.
But you could interpret that as being, okay, how about you just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. You do whatever the hell you want. I'll do whatever the hell I want, and just stay away from me then if you don't want to be around me. And I'll stay away from you and we'll both be happy. Pretty simple. You don't hurt me, I won't hurt you. You don't want to come near me, don't come near me. You're afraid of me if I go to McDonald's, then don't go to McDonald's. If you're comfortable going to, but don't ask. They're the ones imposing on everybody else their beliefs and their requirements. They're making everyone else conform to what they want so that they feel safe. They're imposing and stripping everyone else's rights away so that they have what they think are their rights. I have a right to be safe. Yeah, but you know what? I'm not sick. So I'm not going to make you sick. So you don't have the right to take my rights away. It's doublespeak. It's utter stupidity, and it's all part of a collectivist ideology and mentality,
which never existed in North America until now.
And yet today we saw, today we saw Justin Trudeau again.
Mm-hmm.
He gave this speech where he talked about the importance of respecting people's individual rights, and I thought, what a two-faced, double-speaking dimwit. What a tyrant. The guy's taking everybody's rights away, has no respect for individual rights. That's the difference, right? If you believe in individual rights and individualism, then you don't really subscribe to this collectivism, communism, socialism, Marxism. That's all about collectivism.
Yeah.
We're all in it together. We, you know, everyone's got to wear a mask to make one person feel safe. Everybody else's health is your responsibility. You have to do it for the greater good.
Stand together by standing apart.
Even the follow thing, right? Just stay at home. Oh, there's the solution to everything for those guys. Just lock her down. Lock yourself down. Lock yourself in your house. Hide under your bed. Duck and cover. It'll be fine. That's what that was. That was duck and cover 2022 style.
Yeah, it was.
What freaking stupidity.
Yeah.
You know what? I value freedom, and freedom comes from the rights of the individual. And those are enshrined in our Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada and in the Constitution of the United States. The rights of the individual are paramount. And that's the problem. That's not being recognized today. And they're doing an end run around it. Okay, let's listen to what this TikToker has to say.
You see that? Look at that. All right, let's roll.
Oh hey, welcome to this episode of Dumb Shit Your Politicians Did This Week. I feel like every single week I'm talking about politicians who aren't wearing their masks. Well, this week, Marco Rubio and yet again Ron DeSantis. Rubio actually skipped Biden's State of the Union address because he didn't have the time to get tested for COVID that day. Somehow he's so busy, yet he doesn't have 5 minutes to make productive change in Florida. So we're not buying that. However, somehow that wasn't the dumbest thing to happen this week regarding COVID. A Dumb Shit Your Politicians Did favorite, Ron DeSantis, shockingly we're talking about him again. He is back at it again this week, bullying teenagers?
You're not up to wear those masks. Please take them off. She's not doing anything. We got to stop with this COVID theater. This is ridiculous.
Pretty sure they wouldn't be wearing the masks if they didn't want to. Do better. But I also want to mention that 70,000 people in Florida have died because of COVID. It's something that we'll be bringing up again in Florida primaries. Lastly, on a more serious note, the House of Representatives this week passed the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, which officially labels lynching as a hate crime. This bill had a nearly unanimous vote. For some reason, there's a nearly. 3 representatives, Andrew Clyde, Thomas Massey, and Chip Roy, voted no on the bill, which is absolutely fucking insane. Roy claims that it didn't have anything to do with lynching, but with a woke agenda. Absolutely unbelievable. We do want to remind you to call out your politicians. That is it for this week. Oh hey, welcome to this episode of Dumb Shit Your Politicians Did This Week. I feel like every
And there you have it. Actually, that was a good time to stop that. Just crazy eyes.
How old do you think she is?
Say a day over 19 or 18.
You think she's that old?
Yeah, I think so.
And what age group do you think this is aimed at?
Yeah, about that. To 25,
16?
I would say.
16?
16 to 25, I would say.
14? Yeah. Kids. It's aimed at kids.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
I think she needs her mouth washed out with soap. I think
Yeah.
she needs to be grounded, and I think she needs a spanking from her mom. Yeah.
If she did get COVID, I wonder how she'd blow her nose. Looks like it'd be a huge obstacle. Super spreader event.
I think I don't think she has respect for other people. I think she's ill-mannered. I think she has a pretty big ego for someone so young. And and I think she's dangerous.
And I mean, anti-lynching bill, like, is that like how the actor from Empire, what's his name, Jussie Smollett, who just got
Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, just got sentenced to like 150 days in jail for creating this big investigation where he had claimed he was mugged and lynched by these 2 Trump supporters, and they ended up being like his Nigerian bodyguards who he hired.
What is this anti-lynching bill? I'm not familiar with it. It was whatever state it was in. And I don't know why you need an anti-lynching bill since, I think lynching was probably already a crime. And I don't know why anyone would vote against it. I don't know why anyone would vote for it because haven't read the bill. So I'd want to know what's actually in it, because a lot of this legislation, when it's tabled, has very little to do with whatever the title is on it. Quite often these days, these types of legislation, these types of bills are they slip in. They have another agenda behind them.
Yeah, big time.
It's not what it appears to be on the surface.
And I mean, we're going to see a lot more of that when we bring up the Ontario issue very shortly.
The other thing, Brendan, I think this girl should clean up her language, especially when it's aimed at younger people, because a lot of kids are listening to her, no doubt about it. And your government, your tax dollars are helping to promote that girl's message online. They're leveraging that with a media buy online on TikTok to get her more views. She's getting paid for this. Government money behind this Gen Z for action, or Gen Z for change, sorry.
Yeah.
And they're encouraging your kids to talk trash.
And look at the ignorance on some of these people. Like this one comment here, it says, "I just looked up what lynching is. Why was it legal?" Well, it wasn't legal. It's assault, and you could.
Miss Jensky just summed it right up. Charming young lady.
Yeah,
absolutely right. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Look at this person. This person here is like a straight up communist. Also, similar bills have been shut down over 200 times. What?
Yeah, Coin Designer says, can we play a video? I have a chat link. If you send the link, maybe I might be able to copy it and bring it up.
Yeah, we can do that.
Or if you want to email us at maverickmultimedia@mail.com. That's maverickmultimedia@mail.com. We can pick the link up there as well. I can check the email as the broadcast progresses, and that would just give us a hot link.
This is the last TikTok of the evening. However, I think we've all had enough of it. But the point that we needed to make here is that this group is well-funded, well-organized, is backed by the government of the United States.
Do we have any of them talking about Ukraine other than what we've seen?
There was the one there. The rest of them are kind of scattered all over. I could pull more if you want.
Well, just sorry, you have another one for us or not?
No, that was all
that was
I had.
it.
Yeah, those are the ones that I kind of sifted through and found. But there's all kinds of more. All you have to do is go on TikTok.
Cindy Lynn says these teens on TikTok have very bad language. Needs parental authority to correct that. How sad to see they talk so vile, using the F word all the time. They lack good Christian values. You know what? It's just further deterioration of our society, of our communities, and it's being encouraged and promoted by government. And yeah, I turn on the television every night. Well, I don't actually. Shouldn't say that. When I do turn on the television, I just yearn for the television of the past, because maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but I just don't like what I see.
I don't know. I don't watch anything on TV anymore.
No. I can't watch any of the primetime shows.
No.
You know?
Well, the thing with all these shows is they're now all based off of whatever mathematical equation they came up with that are going to try to get you to be glued to the television. Like, I'm just not interested in that. It doesn't feel creative anymore. It doesn't feel good anymore. But these groups are dangerous. They're all leftists.
Well,
they're all communist based. They're not. These aren't like liberal days where they're talking about free speech or and that sort of thing. This is in. If these people had their way, you would have 100 COVID jabs by now, and you'd be locked in your house 24/7 with a mask on.
Don't worry, it's not over yet. No one is Kenzie says, no one is lynching anyone. Jesse literally planned it himself and put the rope around his own neck. Yes, he did.
Yes.
And yes, she is a child. That girl is just a child. I don't think if she's 19, she might be, I guess. But anyway.
I did find some info on Wikipedia, of all places, about their finances. So, I mean, to be taken with a grain of salt. So they get all their financing through this corporation called Act Blue, and is an American nonprofit technology organization established in June of 2004 that enables left-leaning nonprofit Democratic candidates and progressive groups to raise money from individuals and donors on the internet by providing them with online fundraising software. Its stated mission is to empower smaller donors. Act Blue raised $19 million in the first 3 years. So if you skip ahead to 2020, in 2020, several fundraising records were broken. In the week following the murder of George Floyd on May 31st, over $19 million was raised, the highest single day total so far that year. On June 1st, that yearly record was again broken, $20 million in donations. Over half the donations in the week following the killing went to charitable, non-political causes, including one Act Blue page devoted to a bail fund, which raised over $1.5 million from 20,000 donors in the day following the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Over $30 million. Ginsburg, sorry. $30 million was donated through Act Blue, again breaking a single-day record. So these groups are collecting millions and millions of dollars from you. They're collecting millions and millions of dollars from the government. It goes deep. It goes real deep. And I'll be interested to know if they do give me the Freedom of Information Act request. I did request. It'll remain to be seen, and I'll be more than happy to share that with everybody once I get it.
You know, that's why the country, both Canada and the United States, that's why we're in so much trouble. It's because you can be on the left and you can support these extreme left-wing organizations, and maybe, you know, bring up that website again, Brendan, for the Biden Hitler Youth.
Yep.
And open up the you know, there's some areas in there. What's it called again? It's Gen Z for Change.
Yeah, that's it.
And the website is what, genzforchange.org?
Yeah, I think so. Gen Z.
Yeah, here it is. So, you know, what's my point? The point is, we're really, really in a lot of trouble because it's the left and the fascists together have formed this unholy alliance where they're trying to tear down the country, burn it all down, burn down our countries and Western society. And government is endorsing it. Government is funding it with our tax dollars. But if you're on the other side, you're attacked. If you're going to support truckers in Canada who are fighting for freedom, they'll hunt you down. They'll send goon cops to beat you up. They'll throw you in jail. They'll freeze your bank account. They'll dox you. They'll expose your name from a list that was hacked on a crowdfunding platform to mark you out, or they think they're marking you out, so that companies are afraid to hire you and give you work because you're being marked as being someone with unacceptable views, as Justin Trudeau said. So on this side of the political spectrum, you're not even allowed to fund it, because if you do, you're a terrorist. But on the other side of the political spectrum, heck, they'll force you to fund it because they'll just take your tax dollars and give it to these groups. And in fact, we saw that almost happen. What almost happened with the trucker fund is the government tried to seize that money and force what's the first one that they used? Not Give, Send, Go. GoFundMe.
GoFundMe, thank you.
Yeah, they were just going to take that money and give it to charities that they thought were worthy, which would have been charities on the other side of the political spectrum, charities opposite of what the truckers were fighting for. Charities, politically oriented organizations that have all of the same objectives and political values as Gen Z for Change, which is to tear down, tear apart families, impose a woke ideology,
tear down everything. And here's the biggest thing of all. The trucker movement and everything that was embodied in the trucker movement was the sole idea of just being left the hell alone by the government.
Here are the issues. Click the issues tab on that Gen Z for Change. It's all the regular left-wing woke agenda, okay? Climate justice. End fracking. I mean, right now we're paying record prices for gasoline. Truckers can't afford to fill their tanks. The cost of fuel is driving up the cost of everything to record heights. And this group wants to end fracking, establish energy efficient zero carbon housing. Okay, well, good luck. They've got, criminal justice is another issue. They want to legalize marijuana and decriminalize all drugs. Reallocate police funds, which is the whole defund police thing, right? That's what they're all about. It's all BLM, rebranded. Economic security, raise higher minimum wage. It doesn't matter what the minimum wage is. They always want it higher. Well, it's true.
That's why it's funny, because regrettably, it's
yeah.
And
for me, what I think. What I think that we should be more concerned about. We should be more concerned about getting everyone their maximum wage, creating great jobs that pay really well for people, so that everyone reaches their maximum potential and lives a prosperous life. All these guys ever care about is getting, a minimum wage. And if they have their way, everybody will be living on minimum wage, because we're all just going to have a universal basic income and no incentive to do anything more, because if you work, they're just going to tax it away from you. What else do they advocate for?
And the 3 strikes law. So that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I fully believe if you are a terrible person and you continually do terrible things, what are they going to do? Just keep sending you home? Like, that's absurd.
Foreign relations. They want to reallocate defense spending and fund people first policies. Well, what the heck does that mean? End the war on terror and Islamophobia. I don't know. I don't know. That sounds. I want to know more about what they mean by that. End ongoing U.S. influence in Latin American elections. example, Bolivia and Brazil. I thought the Biden administration was pure and would never influence other countries, and Obama never did that, right? Like in Ukraine.
No.
They
That would
never
never
did
happen.
that. Like
No.
that coup, the CIA coup in Ukraine, that never happened.
No.
And
Oh, look at this. End support of authoritarian regimes. Oh, so that's why we're going to be begging Venezuela for oil, right? Okay. Great. You guys got your man in, and now look what's happening.
yeah, free and fair elections.
Fair elections.
Ban
Ooh.
voter ID laws. Yeah. Okay, so like vote early, vote often, and just go from one poll to another and keep on voting because
We must make voting accessible, simple,
right,
free, and
you know,
fair.
why would you have to show ID? You know, why would you have to show that you're an eligible voter? Just let everyone in the world vote. Just let the whole world vote in U.S. elections.
Overturn Citizens United and getting dark money and the money of multimillionaires and billionaires out of our elections. Abolish the filibuster. Okay, so
You know, it just goes on and on. These groups, they just
ban voter ID laws. There you go, Rick. You called it.
yeah.
Look,
It's all this stuff. It's all, and again, like even here under indigenous rights, they want to they say ban fracking again, end Line 3 and phase out all existing and future oil and natural gas projects. Like, oh, God. It's not realistic. It isn't realistic.
no, it's not. Absolutely not.
We
In
need
fact,
people
these
will freeze to death.
These people have put us in the predicament that we're in.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's this kind of thinking and fracking. Let's get rid of oil. Let's just have only sustainable energy. Let's create a new power grid that only uses solar and wind. Not going to happen. Technology's not there. Get real. And we need to put, you know what, we really do need to put people first. The interests of people, the welfare of people, and that means creating a prosperous society where people are allowed to explore their options to reach their full potential as a human being, to reach for their maximum income, not focus on just a minimum wage job at McDonald's, to not just have to subsist or just exist with a universal basic income, but create incentives to have people through freedom work at jobs that help everyone. Like, they just want to push everyone down so that everyone is at the lowest level, the lowest
serfdom, peasantry. That's what they want.
They don't want you to have energy. They don't want you to have a car. They don't want you to have things. They don't want you to be prosperous. They just want everyone to dress the same, be the same, have the same. They want everyone to live in a little box. They want to track everybody, make sure that they know everything that you spend your money on, your allowance. And they want to treat you like a dog and make sure that you're vaccinated and you get your little license so that they can follow you around, make sure they know exactly where you are at all times. And that's exactly what it is. I think of it that way all the time. They want to treat us like dogs. They want us licensed, fully vaccinated, because they're afraid they're going to get rabies from us. And they just want to keep us in locked up in our pens. That's
Big
it.
time.
And we come out when they let us. They're treating us like animals. Not me.
Not me either. And folks, you have to understand something here. The government isn't going to fix any of your problems, ever. Ronald Reagan, I think, said it best. Doesn't matter really what you think of him, but this quote is just absolutely lovely, is how he says, the worst words that you could ever hear, the worst sentence you could ever hear is, "We're from the government and we're here to help." That speaks volumes. A dollar is always more powerful in the pocket of a citizen than it is in the government's coffers.
Raylex says, keep the population stoned and manipulated. I absolutely believe that. I've said that myself for a long time. And that is exactly what Justin Trudeau did in Canada with the marijuana legalization, as far as I'm concerned. He used that as a way he uses that to keep the population docile. They want people stoned, so they just sit at home. They want them stoned and drunk, so that all through COVID, they've kept the liquor stores open, the weed stores are open, so everybody can sit around and get drunk and stoned at home while they're watching Netflix, eat their Twinkies on their sofa, and not think about things too deeply. And I really believe it. I absolutely believe it. They don't want you to reach for the stars. They just want you to sit in your pen.
And the government paid for that. They paid for all these entertainers to keep you at home. On many instances.
Rick and Brendan, have you seen the series Fall of the Cabal? It's a real eye-opener as to what has been going on behind the scenes with this pandemic. No, I've not seen it.
No, I've heard of it, though. People are telling me to watch it.
Seen a post today. Gas in California in the desert for premium was $9 plus a gallon.
Absolutely.
Keep voting for those Democrats. All you lefties. Keep voting for them. There's more of that to come.
Mm-hmm.
And don't frack, don't drill, don't build pipelines. Phase out all the fossil fuels. Get rid of it. We don't need it. If people don't realize now that these high gas prices are by design, they're still not awake.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a war in Ukraine. They're just using that as an excuse. It's just one more way that they've been able to get us there. You think this war in Ukraine is an accident? It's also by design. This whole thing is a plan. You can't sell electric cars if gasoline is cheap. People have not been buying electric cars, but the government's pushing every car company to produce them. You're getting them whether you like it or not.
And whether they're properly developed or not.
And whether they're actually environmentally friendly or not. They're coming. You're going to get them. Your tax dollars have funded it. They've funded the development. They're funding the production through grants and tax breaks to every car company, every parts company. Everything is being subsidized, and further, and even the consumption is being of cars. The purchase of them is incentivized as well through government grants and tax incentives at state and provincial levels, and in some cases even at the municipal level. It's all being driven by government, not by the market, not by the people. People have not been buying electric cars. They want to make gasoline so expensive, and they want to make it so expensive to drive a gasoline-powered vehicle that you have no choice. And then they throw up their hands and they say, it's all Putin's fault. If it wasn't for that darn Putin, you'd be able to drive your gasoline-powered car. But since it's now $15 a gallon for the gas, guess you have to buy an electric car. It's only $130,000 for the car. But, I guess there are some cheaper ones now because they have been...
We've all seen... Shame on you. You could spare a few extra bucks so that the people of Ukraine can have their freedom.
Yeah. And if you aren't willing to pay more at the pump, then you're just a Putin apologist. You're a traitor. You're not patriotic at all. You're not a patriot if you don't want to pay more for gas. It's the right thing to do.
One of the commenters, Clark Arthur, said car lots he said, you can't find, on PEI, we cannot even find an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I do see some electric vehicles. I've test driven a few different electric vehicles, so I know what they're all about. It changes your life when you have one. I've had them for like a week at a time, and you have to plan your trips. You have to think about the way you travel entirely differently. It changes things. They will change society in ways people have not even begun to imagine yet, because those cars will be an extension of your cell phone, of you. They will track every movement you make, how much energy you're using, where you go. They'll be able to shut you down remotely if you do something they don't like. It's going to limit your freedom in a myriad of ways. People don't even realize all these cars are like, they're like digital cell phones on wheels.
Yeah,
and they're tracking it.
That's for sure. And I'm not entirely against electric cars per se, but I'm a firm believer in there's different tools for different jobs, and I don't think electric vehicles are up to the job of what they need to be. We can't just say, well, there's your electric car, peasant. You can't afford it.
H. Nguyen says, here's a question for you guys. Do you think they use Dominion vote counters in Canadian elections? At the federal level, they don't, because they still use paper ballots. But in some provincial elections, they do use electric vote counting machines.
Yes.
And I'm not sure. I know Dominion has offices in Canada, so they are involved in some.
Actually, I think they're Canadian based, to be honest.
Yeah.
They are Canadian based, but
So
we will be covering the Ontario election from this channel if God wills it, and
if people support us enough, and you can do that by going to freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions to go to the donation page. We need your help to keep doing these broadcasts. There are costs associated with what we're doing, whether it's sending a reporter to the scene of a news event like the truckers' protests in Ottawa, or just out to talk to people at the gas pumps. You've seen what we've been doing with live feeds and so on. And even just doing these studio broadcasts, there's equipment and fees to be paid, and bandwidth to be paid for. And we're developing a new website, and a myriad, like a bunch of other things. So we need your help, because we are fighting against things like Gen Z for change. We're the counterbalance to that and to the legacy media. That's what we're doing. And we don't get any government funding. So we're relying entirely on our viewers. FreedomReporters.com.
And quite frankly, we don't want it. We don't want.
Yeah, we don't want any government money. I absolutely don't.
No, because that's your money. If you wish to decide to support us, that's up to the people, and that's what we're all about here. In conjunction with that, if you're unable to support us financially, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and selecting the subscribe button. It really helps us out a lot. I cannot tell you how thankful I am for all the support that we have been getting over the past time. And just remember, whenever you do donate, a representative from Gen Z for Change cries. So just remember that.
I think they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
They do. So, yeah, thank you to everyone who has donated so far. Amazing support, and even just the messages that we get. As I've said before, it fills my heart with hope.
Absolutely.
Hope for the future, hope for my kids, hope for your kids, hope for the country. And, you know what we should do, Brendan? We should pray for all those young TikTokers. And hopefully, at some point, they come around and find the way.
One of these
because
days.
I think they're all clearly very misguided right now. sad.
It is very sad, and it's going to affect us in a very sad way. Very, very disappointing.
What else do we have going on tonight?
Oh, well, I think we should go to. Well, maybe we should go to the UN footage you said you had lined up.
Sure, yeah. Because at the UN Security Council today, what were they talking about? Oh, those U.S.-funded biolabs that don't exist or didn't exist, but then they admitted they exist, but now the U.S. is denying that they exist, or at least that they exist in the way that they said that they exist. So just nothing to see here. But at the UN Security Council, I guess they were listening to Russia's accusations today, and we do have some highlights from what was said there today. So let's bring that up. We'll let it roll, and then we'll have a discussion after we listen to what these world leaders were saying about the most bizarre, dangerous, weird story that I had hoped could not be true, but apparently it is. So let's let it rip.
Media reports
I'm sure it'll be better than TikTok.
of biological weapons programs. The United Nations is not aware of any biological weapons programs.
Мы созвали сегодняшнее заседание,
convened the
поскольку в ходе
meeting
проведения
today
России
because,
специальной военной
as
операции
Russia is conducting a special military
открылись
operation
поистине
in
шокирующие
Ukraine,
факты
we discovered the
экстренной
truly
зачистки
shocking
киевским
acts
режимом
of
следов
emergency cleanup
военно-биологической программы,
by the Kiev regime of the traces of a
реализуемой
military biological
Киевом при
program, which is
поддержке
being
Минобороны
implemented by Kiev with support by the United States Ministry of Defense.
В распоряжении российского
Our
Минобороны
Ministry of
оказались
Defense, Russian
документы,
Ministry of
которые
Defense, now
подтверждают,
has
что на территории
documents which
Украины
confirms that
формировалась
on the
сеть
territory of
из, по
Ukraine
крайней мере,
there was a
30
network
биологических
consisting of at
лабораторий,
least 30
в
biological
которых
laboratories
проводятся крайне
in
опасные
which
биологические
very
эксперименты,
dangerous biological experiments are being conducted,
нацеленные на усиление
aimed
патогенных
at
свойств
strengthening the pathogenic
чумы,
qualities of the
сибирской язвы,
plague, anthrax,
туляремии,
tularemia,
холеры
cholera,
и других смертельных
and other
болезней с
lethal
использованием
diseases
синтетической биологии.
using synthetic biology.
Стали
Our
известны
military
подробности
became
проекта
aware of the details
UP-4,
of the project
который
UP4,
реализовывался в
which was
лабораториях
being
Киева,
conducted in
Харькова и Одессы.
laboratories of Kiev, Kharkov, and
Его
Odessa.
целью является
The
изучение
goal is
возможности
to study the
распространения особо
possibility
опасных
of
инфекций
spreading particularly
через
dangerous
мигрирующих
infections
птиц,
using migratory birds.
в том числе
And this includes
высокопатогенного
the highly
гриппа
pathogenic
H5N1,
influenza H5N1,
летальность которого для
whose
людей достигает
lethality for
50%,
people
а
reaches
также болезнь
50%,
Ньюкасла.
as well as in the Newcastle disease.
В рамках еще одного
Yeah, there was
проекта в
another
качестве
project
переносчика
where the vector of
потенциальных
the
агентов
potential
биологического
agents of
оружия
biological weapon,
рассматривались летучие мыши.
bats were considered.
Среди приоритетных
Amongst
направлений для
priority
изучения
areas
фигурируют
for
бактериальные и
study,
вирусные
they
патогены,
include the bacterial and
которые
viral
могут передаваться от
pathogens that
летучих
could
мышей к
spread
человеку.
from bats to people,
Чума,
such as
лептоспироз,
plague,
а также
leptospirosis,
филовирусы и
and as well as
коронавирусы.
filoviruses and
Как
coronaviruses.
вытекает из проектных
As
документов,
can
США
see from the
активно
project
финансировали
documents, the
биологические
United
проекты
States
на
actively
Украине.
funded the biological projects in
Велись
Ukraine.
эксперименты по
Experiments
изучению
were being
переноса
conducted
опасных
to study the
заболеваний
spread of dangerous
эктопаразитами,
diseases
шальными
using
блохами.
ectoparasites such as lice and fleas. The
Оборонные
Ministry of
материалы подтверждают,
Defense
что
of
все
ours
серьезные
has
исследования
materials
повышенной
stating that
опасности
all
в
of the
биолабораториях
serious
Украины
studies
проводились
of
под непосредственным
high level
руководством
of
специалистов
danger
из
in
США,
biological laboratories
которые
in
обладали
Ukraine were
дипломатическим
conducted
иммунитетом.
under the leadership of specialists of the United States who had diplomatic immunity.
Сейчас, по данным нашего
Currently,
Минобороны,
according
киевский
to our
режим по
Ministry of
требованию
Defense, the
западных
Kiev
кураторов
regime,
спешно заметает
according
следы,
to the request of their
чтобы к
Western
российской
mentors,
стороне
are
не
trying
попали
to clean it
прямые
all up.
свидетельства.
Russia asked the Security Council for today's meeting for the sole purpose of lying and spreading disinformation, and that is exactly what you have heard from the Russian PR this morning. Last month, Secretary Blinken laid out with tragic accuracy what Russia was about to do. He specifically warned that Russia would manufacture a pretext for attack and even cautioned that Russia would fabricate allegations about chemical or biological weapons to justify its own violent attacks against the Ukrainian people. Today, the world is watching Russia do exactly what we warned it would. Russia is attempting to use the Security Council to legitimize disinformation and deceive people to justify President Putin's war of choice against the Ukrainian people. And China, too, has been spreading disinformation in support of Russia's outrageous claims. I will say this once. Ukraine does not have a biological weapons program. There are no Ukrainian biological weapons laboratories supported by the United States, not near Russia's border or anywhere. So here are the facts. Ukraine owns and operates its own public health laboratory infrastructure. These facilities make it possible to detect and diagnose diseases like COVID-19, which benefit us all. The United States has assisted Ukraine to do this safely and securely. In fact, it is Russia that has long maintained a biological weapon program in violation of international law. It is Russia that has a well-documented history of using chemical weapons. It is Russia who is the aggressor here. Russia has a track record of falsely accusing other countries of the very violations that Russia itself is perpetrating. And given that, and consistent with our previous statements, we have serious concerns that Russia may be planning to use chemical or biological agents against the Ukrainian people.
Russia has today brought into the Security Council a series of wild, completely baseless, and irresponsible conspiracy theories. Let me put it diplomatically. They are utter nonsense. There is not a shred of credible evidence that Ukraine has a biological weapons program. Ukraine is a state party to the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention in good standing. As we've heard, the research facilities are established facilities set up to deal with public health hazards. They said they would not invade Ukraine. They then invaded. Foreign Minister Lavrov then said they hadn't invaded, and he repeated this absurdity yesterday. A whole pack of lies. They said Ukraine was preparing a dirty bomb. That was a lie too. They said yesterday that a pregnant woman staged her injuries in the Mariupol hospital bombing. That was a grotesque lie.
The U.S. representative, in her statement, made a groundless allegations against China, which we firmly reject. The international community has been raising concerns about the U.S. military biological activities. They have around the world 336 laboratories. This number comes from the information provided by the U.S. to the Conference of State Parties of the BCW. The U.S. said they are for transparency. If they believe the relevant information is fake, all they can do is to provide us with relevant data, provide clarification so that the international community can draw a conclusion by itself.
Полагали,
As we expected,
мои западные коллеги,
our
прежде
Western
всего,
colleagues, first and
никто из
foremost,
них не говорил по
neither
существу
one
поставленного нами
of
вопроса.
them addressed the substance of the issue we put
Когда
forward.
моя американская коллега
When my American
метала
colleague
громы молнии,
was
обвиняя нас, как мы
throwing
и предполагали, в
thunderbolts and
пропаганде,
accused us, as expected, of
вспомнились
propaganda,
две вещи.
two things came to mind.
Во-первых, наша русская
First of all,
пословица «на войне и шапка горит»,
Russian
«guilty mind is
saying,
never at ease».
which, according to which a guilty mind is never at ease.
Чем громче и голословнее пытаются свалить
The
вину на нас наши
louder
коллеги,
people are trying to shift the
тем
blame
больше мы
on us,
убеждаемся, что попали в
the
точку,
greater is our
рассказывая
conviction
про
that
их
we
достаточно
hit
нелицеприятную
the
деятельность
nail
на
on
Украине.
the head when we're talking about their
Во-вторых, невозможно
nefarious activity
не
in Ukraine.
вспомнить на другую
Secondly,
историю,
I
которая неоднократно уже
remember another story
упоминалась в разных
which
контекстах,
was
знаменитой
mentioned
пробиркой Колина
many
Пауэлла
times in
в
many
этом самом зале,
contexts about the
что стало
container shown
основанием
by the
для
Colin Powell
интервенции
some time
Соединенных
ago
Штатов в
here
Ирак,
in this room, which
повлекшей
became the foundation for the
колоссальные
United States
человеческие
going
жертвы.
into Iraq.
Would have been hilarious if the commercial that came up was brought to you by Pfizer.
What are your thoughts, Brendan?
What a mess. These people are supposed to be diplomats. There's nothing diplomatic about what any of them do. Just a bunch of morons pointing fingers at each other saying, "You're a conspiracy theorist." No, we're not conspiracy theorists. You're a conspiracy theorist. We've seen plenty of things pointing to there being at least level 3 labs in Ukraine, and that there's possible government involvement, and that the United States has been way too involved in everything going on in Ukraine, and that the very fact that they're not taking any responsibility for any of this, I think shows exactly what's going on. And he made a point. He said, I remember being in this room with Colin Powell, and they showed containers, and the United States was making the exact same claims that we are. And he's talking about the Iraq War and the claim that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and that's the reason why we need to go into Iraq, and blah, blah, blah. Look, I need to point out something here. Russia is not being good here by doing this either. This is bad. This is bad all around. And we're all paying for it. And Ukraine's paying for it more than anybody. This is dangerous. This is very dangerous what we're doing. We're playing with fire. We have been playing with fire for a long time. And I think the strangest thing of all is how all of this escalated when Ukraine's best buddy comes back into the picture in politics. Joe Biden.
Mm.
Yeah, well, we know that he's up to his eyeballs in it over there, right?
Yeah.
Clark Arthur says car lots are empty. That's true. Huge inventory problems still. Good observation. We need to do something soon, guys, because our economy is in a lot of trouble. And I think that this chip shortage for the cars, the gas prices, the stuff in Ukraine, all of this stuff, it's all by design. This is not just bad stuff that has been happening by accident. We need to find a way out of this. The auto industry was one of the main engines that drove the economy, and it's being crippled. But anyway, back to this bioweapons stuff. You know, it really comes down to who do you believe? And it's so hard to know what to believe, but what has the ring of truth here? And where are we at with all of this? Because I honestly, when I first started hearing about this, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't think it was true. I thought it was just over the top propaganda until we started to see more evidence of it. Then I began to wonder about it. Documents started to come out. Old news stories began to resurface as people dug those up because people remembered things, went back and found them. And there was confirmation in many of these old stories from, just a few years ago where U.S. officials made reference to these labs and what they were for and made reference to pathogens being in there. And then all this, there was the Victoria Nuland statement this week where she acknowledged that these labs existed or that they do exist after we were told that they really didn't. And when asked by Senator Marco Rubio if Ukraine had a biological weapons program, she didn't say no. She came out and did this little song and dance about how Ukraine has these biological labs where they study things, but that wasn't a no. If there were no bio weapons labs there, then why wouldn't the answer just be a straight up no right then and there? It wasn't. It was like we had to have this weird explanation. That tells me something. It tells me that where there's smoke, there's fire. And now we're getting all this backtracking and all the, you know what? The Ukrainians, they're really bad at their propaganda. We've been able to spot story after story after story, day after day, where their propaganda just falls apart. Whether it's the Ghost of Kiev, which is a, complete BS about a fighter pilot, or the Miss Ukraine fighting for her country but posing with an airsoft gun. And even this thing with the hospital in Mariupol, that's all questionable now. I don't know what to believe there. You're getting propaganda on both sides there. And we've seen evidence that that hospital had already been evacuated and taken over and used as a base by, I believe it was the Azov neo-Nazi group, right? Which is,
one of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're using a hospital to shield their military forces. That's got to be intentional.
And so it's just anyway. There's obviously propaganda surrounding that whole bombing of the hospital, and these biolabs. Just look at like I said yesterday with the lab in Wuhan. Oh no, corona that came from a pangolin and a bat. And if you think it came from a lab, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, now we know that it did. And it was created. But so much time sort of passed when that revelation finally came out that I think it sort of softened the blow. And people were just kind of like, oh, well, whatever. Like, guys, the world has been turned upside down and inside out because this virus, which appears to have been man-made in a laboratory, was unleashed on the world population. It's horrific. And they've used it to manipulate everyone, control everyone, and implement this global world domination plan. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you would normally see in a James Bond movie. And it's so whacked that people still kind of don't believe it because it's so bizarre and so, Joseph Goebbels said, Hitler's propagandist, that if you tell a lie big enough, long enough, people will begin to believe it. Well, I think when you implement a plan that is sinister enough, evil enough, and big enough, people don't believe it. They live in denial and think that things will eventually just go back to normal or it's not that bad. And I think what we're seeing unfold here is it wasn't just the Chinese who were involved in that lab. It was the United States, Fauci, U.S. tax dollars, grants, the Canadian government. Other governments, I think, were probably involved in there as well. But we've seen documentation to show that our tax dollars were going over there. Our researchers were involved with what was going on over there at that Wuhan lab. You can't really just blame the Chinese. And the Chinese have been saying that the virus was created by the Americans. And they had propaganda coming back saying it was the fault of the United States, while Trump and America was saying it was China's fault. I'm beginning to think that they're all involved, every country. And they're all kind of pointing their fingers at each other, saying, "Oh no, it wasn't me. It was Johnny. Johnny did it." And now we're seeing what's going on with these accusations of these labs in Ukraine, biological weapons accusations. I'm really nervous about this, and I'll tell you, it does have the ring of truth to it, doesn't it? It really does. And these denials, they just seem hollow, especially after the revelations that have come forward. The documentation, the news stories from, over the years where U.S. officials refer to these labs. Today at the UN Security Council saying, "Oh no, we don't, it's not us. We didn't do it. It was the Russians. The Russians have biological weapons programs, not us." And yet they're also releasing statements saying that at first, and this was repeated on CNN, that, "Oh no, we were in there cleaning up Russian bioweapons research labs." But that was like from about 17 years ago. How long does it take? And then they shifted that and changed it. So now it's not cleaning up. Now it's containing. Well, why are you containing it? Well, because there's documentation out there that shows that they weren't just containing. It looks like they were probably expanding the research. At least that's what the documents show. And why are they worried about the Russians getting a hold of this stuff if the Russians already had it?
That's just it. I mean, we already know that Russia has weapons of mass destruction. This is no secret. We've known about this since post-World War II.
Their stories just don't add up.
Of course not.
It just doesn't add up.
And this is the propaganda war we're in. Our side is righteous. That side is not righteous. It's blah, blah, blah. It's so much malarkey to sift through.
Yeah, Nicholas Burns says, "Rick, you're forgetting that the parasitic elites control governments. They want electric vehicles because that industry will be worth trillions and also give control." Yeah, I haven't forgotten that, but you're absolutely right. It's another aspect to this, but we can get into all that more in another episode. I'm just into cars, so I tend to go down that road sometimes. I'm just the whole biological weapons thing, it just if any of it is true, where the hell does the United States or NATO or the Western countries, Canada, where do we get off dictating to anybody or preaching to anyone about anything that has anything to do with morality or ethics? Where do we get off saying that we have the moral high ground on this Ukraine issue at all? Because it's pretty clear that we don't. And because there is no moral high ground on either side in this case, like I've said before, and you too in your own way, Brendan, there's just bad guys here. There are no good guys. And it's the people who are paying the price. Just bad guys.
Nobody seems to know where this is going, and public opinion polls seem to be pretty strong in suggesting like the more horrific images come out of Ukraine, the more people are going to be like, we need to get in there and do something about that.
Well, we need to have these discussions too, and we need to engage people and allow people, like even here just through the comments, to express themselves and their concerns and information that they might have about this stuff too, because it is an information war and the people deserve to know what's really going on. We deserve to have our say, because everyone's life, all of our lives, hang in the balance. And these people are playing deadly games that we will all pay the price for in the end,
Yeah.
however it turns out. And they seem quite willing, and I think they're even eager to try to go to war and have a nuclear exchange with Russia. I think this whole bioweapons thing, I think they're dirty. That's just my opinion. And from all the documents we've seen come out, this is just, we need to have a dialogue, discussion, make people aware. It's not enough to just let them sit at that at their desks there around the horseshoe and at the UN Security Council and say, "Oh no, we're not doing it. No, not true. You're a liar. Russia's lying," and then have the Russians say, "Oh no, it's true. Here's and just call each other." It's not enough.
For a bunch of diplomats, there's certainly nothing diplomatic about them.
They need to be held accountable, and that begins with dialogue, discussion, exposure, questions, public awareness. And the more people who are aware, the more people who ask questions, the more media attention that's on it, the better off we are, because it'll shed light on a bunch of cockroaches, and hopefully they all scatter and go away, and we can save some people. It is Russia who threatens our corrupted business in Ukraine. Yes, Ukraine has been, it is a corrupt country. We know a lot of Western politicians have been using it as a money laundering operation. And I'm certain that that is one of the reasons they have been so eager to
come to its aid.
Yeah, to face off against Russia there. They don't want that to end. It's a big cash cow for a lot of these people, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden included. As we've clearly seen, the evidence for that is all available. It's all right there. The media just chooses to ignore that stuff. If they're just research labs, why the concern about what might escape exactly? I don't know who they mean. Who are we talking about? I'm not sure what that means. Hard to believe China has more integrity than the U.S. government. Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Hard to believe Russia seems to have more integrity or truth in what they're telling us right now as well. I don't know. We need to get to the bottom of some of this stuff. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's gotta rear its ugly head out and needs to be seen by everybody. They definitely don't want. They really want this to go full swing.
Yeah. Awesome Treasure says 77 says they brought proof. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? They have evidence. It's not like they're just saying it. There's evidence, physical evidence, documentation. There's a history behind all this stuff. That's what I'm saying. What the U.S. is saying does not add up. Unfortunately, with the stoned, drunk, droned public eating their Twinkies on their sofas, so many people are still content to just put on their mask, listen to what they hear on CNN or CTV or Global or CBC, MSNBC, and just accept it. Oh, well, Jen Psaki said it wasn't true, so it's time for another Twinkie. Marge, bring me a beer, will ya?
That was the worst Homer Simpson impersonation I've ever heard.
Not very good.
Just to say. Look. This is crazy.
Well, Ms. Jensky says, Rick Brendan at Brendan Kennedy Guys, you should check out Schwab's advisor, Yuval Noah Harari. He will scare you.
Yeah, I did pull up his YouTube channel.
Okay. I maybe not tonight because I need to sleep.
Yeah. No,
Maybe
it
I'll
needs to
wait
go
till morning.
through content approval first. So
Yeah, cars with chips. Who else remembers when cars were cars? Good old American muscle didn't need chips. Yeah, give me a 4-barrel and a Holly intake. And they can, you know what? They can launch their ICBMs and they can blanket us with an electromagnetic pulse. And my carbureted car, when it's all said and done, it'll still run because there will be no computer chip in it to get fried.
absolutely, chaff and redirect.
So that's what went on today with regard to the whole Ukraine situation and the biolabs and the propaganda surrounding it all and the accusations, the finger pointing, and it's terrible and it's scary. These guys are like a bunch of stupid little kids, gangsters playing with fire, and they're putting us all at risk. Whether they're playing with biological weapons that are illegal, that could kill half the freaking population, or whether they're willing to go to war and risk a nuclear conflict. These people are insane. And even just what's going on there right now, it's insane. And there's no need for it. It never had to come to this. And it's like you pointed out, Brendan, it's groups like that Gen Z for Change,
yeah,
advocating for the to abolish fossil fuels, to get rid of oil and gas. That's the crap that got us into this mess to begin with, because now we're dependent on Russian oil. We've weakened our position internationally, even from a defensive point of view, because energy is a key component of national security. And if you're not energy independent, you've got a big problem, because now you have to import your oil from other countries. And Russia's a big this has weakened us. And this is part of what has allowed Russia to do what they've done in there. And I won't get into the whole NATO thing again, like I've we've laid out in the past.
Yeah.
But if you're going to negotiate, or if you're going to prevent an enemy from taking an aggressive posture against you or doing anything aggressive, then you need to seek peace through strength. And that doesn't just mean having weapons. It means having a sound economy. And that means a good, sound energy policy. And that has to involve oil today. That's just the reality.
Absolutely.
Shall we move on and go to this Jordan Peterson segment now?
Roll the clip.
Okay, let me get this queued up. A warning from Professor Peterson today about Bill 67, which is a piece of proposed legislation in Ontario, Canada. And let's listen to what Jordan Peterson has to say about this. It is something we all need to be concerned about.
Hello, everyone. You may remember a few years ago, 2016, in the fall, to be precise, that I recorded a video alerting people to what I saw as the dangers of Bill C-16 that I regarded as an attempt to make compelled speech mandatory in Canada. Many of you watching this will be familiar with the events that transpired in consequence. Unfortunately, I feel compelled to do something similar today in a variety of different ways in relationship to another bill, provincial one this time, Bill 67, which purports to address racist issues in the entire Ontario education system. I'm going to read something that I wrote about this as a warning. A warning to citizens of Ontario and Canada. Bill 67, which purports to be nothing but an anti-racist bill, is in fact the most pernicious and dangerous piece of legislation that any Canadian government has attempted to put forward. And I hope I'm not saying that lightly. It will make mandatory the subversion of the entire education system in Ontario, K-12, as well as colleges and universities, to the radically leftist doctrines known as critical theory, a thoroughly anti-Western ideology, both postmodern and Marxist in its derivation, based on the idea that all our extant institutions are racist, sexist, and discriminatory in their essence. Critical theorists assume that history is best understood as the war between identity groups, with one group always oppressing and all other groups always victimized and exploited. Critical theorists dismiss the idea of the sovereign free individual, claiming that belief in such sovereignty and freedom does nothing but justify the oppression and exploitation of the marginalized. In keeping with that rejection, such theorists assume that human identity itself is best understood at the group level, with markers of race, sex, so-called gender, and sexual preference dominating. Critical theorists reject the presumption of individual innocence, absent proof of wrongdoing, assuming that membership in a group regarded as dominant and exploitative is sufficient to indicate the moral culpability of any given member of that group. Critical theorists define offense and harm as subjectively determined. Anyone who feels victimized by any statement made by anyone for any reason is fully justified in their feeling and claim of harm, regardless of the intent of the author of the statement, who is then to be deemed guilty of such victimization and denied even the opportunity for a reasonable defense. Bill 67 will mandate the creation of institutions of inquisition in every educational institution, to which anyone who has an opinion or undertakes an action that is perceived to violate the tenets of critical theory will be made necessarily subject to punishment. The author of this bill, MPP Laura May Lindo, NDP, Kitchener Centre, is former head of equity at Laurier University. It was Laura May Lindo who developed the policies that resulted in the circumstances that enveloped Lindsay Shepherd in 2017, which produced a scandal provincially, nationally, and internationally, left a permanent stain on Canadian universities, on the reputation of Canadian universities, and demolished that young woman's academic ambitions and future. The fact that the Ontario Conservative government has allowed and even encouraged such legislation to be put forward under their aegis, and then ignorant and careless enough to vote in support of it, is a woeful indication of both the perniciousness and deviance of the ideas that the legislation contains, and evidence of their own, the Conservatives' own stunning and continued inability to see the danger such doctrines present. It is much harder to actually deal with the fact of the sometimes unjust distribution of privileges and resources in a complex society than to kowtow to radicals who know how to viciously accuse, weaponize guilt, and claim through manipulative sloganeering the moral upper hand. But there's no excuse for the Conservatives and for the classical liberals, who also believe in the sovereignty of the individual, to trumpet their compassion for the oppressed by allowing authoritarian ideologues to gain their treacherous way. This bill, 67, threatens the integrity of all the systems that will educate all the young people in Ontario for decades to come. If it passes, the rest of the provinces in Canada will follow suit. The fact that this bill is already through second reading is inexcusable. Wake up, Canadians, before you do yourself and your children irreparable harm.
That's just it. Irreparable harm.
So that should be seen as not just an alarm bell, but as an air raid siren for Canada and the United States. This ideology has already infected every institution that we have, every corporation, every big company. It's everywhere. It's holding us hostage, prisoners in our own countries. And it's doing that partly through fear, because people are afraid to speak up. And if this bill passes, everyone will need to be very, very afraid, because, as Jordan Peterson points out, it will weaponize political correctness, if you will, and weaponize identity politics. It will make thought crimes a reality. It's very dangerous, and it will also undermine and potentially eliminate one of the cornerstones of our legal system, which is due process. Because, as he points out, it will create an environment where we will have essentially modern inquisitions within schools, where people who are accused of crimes under this legislation or proposed legislation would really have no way to defend themselves. An accusation results essentially in immediate guilt, because you would be considered guilty until you can prove yourself innocent in some way. And the truth is, there would be no real way for you to redeem yourself. Because how do you redeem yourself from something that is, when you're accused of thinking the wrong things, not just behaving the wrong way? This type of ideology, this type of thinking, this collectivist idea, it comes from, it's rooted in Marxism. It's rooted in postmodernism. And it's designed to sweep away our legal traditions, our legal precedents, our legal system, sweep away the foundations of our very society. And implementing it within school systems is exactly where they want to lay this out, because our children represent what our society will be tomorrow and years from now. This is beyond dangerous. And Jordan Peterson is quite right to point out that our so-called conservative politicians have no excuse for having allowed it to get this far without opposing it. And I know that even politicians like Rick Nichols has voted in favor of this. He's a conservative who recently came out and wouldn't get vaccinated, so he was kicked out of the party. And now he's being hailed as something of a hero by the freedom movement. But the reality is, I really like Rick. And maybe if we have him on the show again, we can explore with him why he would vote for something like that.
He did make a statement. Do you want me to bring that
up? Yeah, you can bring it up. But no, it's not that important right now. Let's save that for another night.
All right,
maybe we'll bring him on, because he has become a voice for the freedom movement. But There are some questions that I have even for him, because he has, I think, mindlessly supported this, which is legislation he did not fully read or comprehend before voting in favor of it, which is careless and dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also exhibited support for a lot of other woke causes, and I think he's done it simply because it was the politically correct thing to do, and it was the path of least resistance that would um, score him some points without costing him very much politically on the conservative side of the aisle. So I think that's where a lot of our politicians are. They kind of put things on a scale and determine what's going to get me the most public support. Where's the least amount of pushback going to come from? What do I need to do here to maximize my public appeal, instead of saying what's the right thing to do? And this Bill C-67, it undermines everything that Western society was built upon, and made our country a free, democratic society where people could thrive, and where people could trust the judicial system, where people knew that there was a high probability that they would get a free trial, a fair trial, right? This isn't really just about racial issues. It's not really just about race. They're using race again in the title in order to unleash legal powers, or to create a piece of legislation that can be weaponized against political opponents. And even worse than that, I would argue that some of the people who would be supporting this are racists themselves, and can turn this thing upside down, or maybe not turn this upside down, but I think it turns the system upside down in a way that allows them to divide people into groups by race, pit people against each other, and target people legally using lawfare in a way that leaves people defenseless. This is just, the country is already gone, and the fact that this kind of legislation is being tabled and has already made it past second reading shows that our politicians are spineless, weak, and or already indoctrinated, and that they're brain dead and don't see the danger in this.
You want to know the saddest part, Rick?
Hmm.
It's only 9 pages.
Yeah.
9 pages. Oops, I'm sorry.
Rick said that I think he said he didn't read it, and he just voted on it because he thought it was an anti-racism bill. It's not an anti-racism bill.
I think now is possibly a good time to mention. So Jordan Peterson did make mention of Lindsay Shepherd and what had happened to her at Laurier University in Ontario. Lindsay Shepherd was a teacher's assistant. She was undergoing a communications education. Neither here nor there, but she was doing a communications class for a teacher. And one of the subjects that came up was gender pronouns. And because gender pronouns is something that has been, that they've forcibly been making changes on, she started a class discussion. And so she took a TVO talk show that Jordan Peterson had appeared on to talk about it, and she presented it to the class. And then they had a class discussion on it. Well, the representatives that took Lindsay Shepherd into a back room after this class and accused her of playing hateful content. So TV Ontario is kind of like PBS. And you can imagine the things on PBS are pretty soft usually. There's nothing volatile about them usually. So they accused Lindsay Shepherd of basically of sponsoring Jordan Peterson and saying that if you support Jordan Peterson, that's equivalent to supporting Hitler. And Lindsay Shepherd, God bless her soul, had the audacity to record this little tribunal that they were having against her. And it's about an hour long. She does cry at some points in it, and I don't blame her, because you could feel the stress coming right out of the audio in what had happened there. It was absolutely atrocious. She sent the audio to a journalist, and the journalist ended up making it public everywhere. There was a huge scandal at Laurier University, which is I don't know, would you call it a prestigious university in Ontario, Rick?
I don't think any of the universities are prestigious anymore, Brendan.
Yeah, but do you think people would call it that? People would be like, oh, yeah, we want to send our kids there.
Some people do. Some people do. I wouldn't anymore.
So we were just talking about how this is only 9 pages, and right off the hop, on page 4, it talks about, so this is all about amending the Education Act, and it says, Section 301 of the Act is amended by adding the following subsections. Same promoting racial equity. The minister shall establish policies and guidelines with respect to promoting racial equity in schools, which must include policies and guidelines respecting training for all teachers and other staff. Well, I would wager any money that they already received said training. Resources to support pupils, teachers, and staff who have been targeted by racism. Again, there's also already anti-discrimination policies in schools across Canada and schools across the United States. Strategies to support pupils, teachers, and staff who witness incidents of racism. Again, we already have those policies in place. Resources to support pupils, teachers, and staff who have engaged in racist behaviors. We already have diversity training. Procedures that allow pupils, teachers, and staff to report incidents of racism safely and in a way that minimizes the possibility of reprisal. You know what that means, Rick Walker? You are not entitled to know who your accuser is. Procedures that allow parents and guardians and other persons to report incidents of racism.
And we should point out, sorry, Brendan, we should point out that under the current legal system, if you're accused of a crime, at some point in the process, you have the right to face your accuser.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to find out who it is that's accusing you of the crime so that you can defend yourself. But in this case, with this legislation, that's another piece of the legal foundation that is eliminated.
This opens a doorway for people to make a baseless claim, and you have no means of fighting for yourself or defending yourself.
That's exactly right.
So I'm just going to finish these points here because I scrolled through it while we were watching the video and I found these points of interest. Procedures that allow parents and guardians and other persons to report incidents of racism. They already have that. It's a phone. You ever heard of that? And the secretary at school? To use disciplinary measures within the framework described in Clause 6 in response to racism. Procedures for responding appropriately and in a timely manner to racism. Matters to be addressed in prevention of racist behaviors and intervention plans established by boards under Section 303A. So, everything I just read in there is basically designed to give somebody a job who probably would never get a job in a million years. And it's going to cause great harm to people because people are going to make baseless accusations. And what's going to happen then? I think our words of racism and Nazism and everything else, I think that we've lost all meaning with these words at this point. These are words that used to be special. Not special in the sense that they were stupid, but they're very powerful. We've taken that power away from those words.
Yeah, they don't really carry the weight that they used to or the meaning. They've watered them down, and they've just used them as a universal insult for anyone that disagrees with them. So now people, especially younger people, don't understand what a Nazi really is.
Of course not. And that's a damn shame, because those are important things, and those things do need to be called out as they do occur. But to pretend that they're around every corner like the boogeyman under your bed is absolutely absurd. And
the bigger problem with this legislation and this woke ideology, but especially as it relates to the legal system, and this notion that all of our institutions, whether it's police, our hospitals, our municipal governments, or our school systems in this case.
Yep.
The problem is that when you say that the system is, that you have systemic racism, as they do, and when you lay it out in this kind of legislation in the way that they do, the problem is, you know what? A certain group of people is already considered guilty. Just with this, with the stroke of a pen, when that legislation is signed into law, an entire group of people instantly becomes criminalized, because it assumes, there's an automatic legal assumption that the system is racist, and that the people running the system, therefore, are racists, and the people embedded within that system must therefore be racist, and are therefore already in violation of the legislation. So if you don't publicly take a knee and worship at the altar of the far left or the fascio-communists, if you don't worship at their altar of political religion publicly and display your obedience and do the things that you're supposed to do and go through the motions and exhibit your obedience, you'll be targeted and you will automatically be guilty, and there will be no way for you to prove your innocence, and you will be shunned, kicked out, your job will be taken away, you'll be stripped of your employment, your income, and pay other penalties within the community. It's a way for them. It's like sinner right over there, witch.
That's exactly it. This is a witch hunt. And Jordan Peterson, and you were just elaborating on that, hit the nail right on the head, that our society is predicated on that we are all innocent until proven guilty. This is not anything that allows for that. And the second biggest issue here is, what's this doing to our kids? And oddly enough, this story came out of Florida today, and it absolutely blew my mind. So, this came out of Florida today. It says 5 middle school students are facing hate crime charges after what was believed to be racially motivated attack against another group of kids in Coconut Creek. Police said the incident happened Wednesday morning at the Coconut Creek Recreation Center, which is a short walk away from Lions Creek Middle School. The arrest reports from Coconut Creek police stated the victims were racially profiled, according to the reports, and the students told police that the other students approached them yelling, "It's opposite day and brown power." The group looked at the students and stated, "He is white," before another student tackled him to the ground, which subsequently allowed the group of middle school kids to start hitting him with their hands and feet and phone chargers. One student said that he was attacked after he was dropped off at the center before class, and he told NBC6 that a group of guys from his school ran over to jump him and another group of students. The attackers hit and kicked him and yelled things that made him believe that he was being targeted because he is white, the student said. I put my hands up so they don't whack my face, he said. After they jumped me, they said this is like revenge for what they did in the 1700s for slavery. 5 kids have been charged with battery, but on the arrest report it says with prejudice, which elevates the charge to a felony. There were no serious injuries reported. Broward County Public Schools said in a statement that this was an off-campus incident and that police and fire responded to it. The principal of the school sounded out a robocall to make parents aware of the incident, saying they're always working to provide a safe and secure learning environment and will work to ensure that any off-campus incidents do not impact students at the middle school. We can't do anything to the other kids because it didn't happen on school property, said Frank Foster, who said his kid was attacked. He wants to go back to school there because all his friends are there, but he does not feel safe. There's an opportunity to move out, but that seems like a punishment. And there you have it. I don't know whether this is true or not. I do believe in justice, and I do believe in that even these students here have the right to, fair trial and the presumption of innocence. But if it is true, where is it that they got this mentality from? And I think we all know exactly where they get this mentality from. It's dangerous. This is dangerous. It's
Look,
very
all
dangerous.
this stuff, it's all upside down. The language they use is upside down. The intent is not what it appears to be. It never is. It's supposed to, they talk about anti-racism. It fosters more racism. It fosters more division. It creates, it's the root of what is basically a race war, right? It generates hate because it divides people and pits people against each other. That's what all of this stuff does. When they're telling us that this is a path to a better society, it's a big lie. It isn't. As you can see, it ends up in what do we get from this stuff? We get the opposite of what they promise because they speak with this double speak, and it's never what it appears to be. Whether it's BLM, which is a race disorganization in itself, or whether it's the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, which I would argue is actually the anti-Canadian hate network. They're not about stopping hate. They want you. They know exactly who they want you to hate, and that's their job, is to generate hate and channel it and target political opponents for Justin Trudeau. That's their job. This stuff going on in the Ontario schools system right now, or the Ontario government, which will affect the Ontario school system, very dangerous. And you see the effects here. And down in Florida, you see now that Ron DeSantis has banned critical race theory. The Florida government there has now banned critical race theory because of what it is. It is the opposite of what they pretend they're about. It's not about tolerance or bringing people together or ending racism. I would suggest to you it's just the opposite. Some of these politicians and political activists thrive on conflict. They profit from it. They make their livings from it.
And look, folks, that example I just showed you is not the only one. It is just the youngest example. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. If anybody who's familiar with Brett Weinstein, evolutionary biologist, worked at Evergreen State University, and that university at one point had a kind of a day without us where people of color would not show up to school so that everybody could acknowledge that the things they do add value to the campus. And they tried to flip it one year where they stated, okay, well, everybody of color is going to stay in the school, and we are demanding everybody who is white not be allowed to go to school. And it created a violent uproar and a big crap show. Like, it was terrible. And anybody who knows Brett Weinstein, take a look at the Dark Horse podcast. Gentlest soul you could ever hear. Like, this guy just sounds very gentle. I don't understand where it comes from, but we're all people, and we all have laws to protect us, and we all have the responsibility, if somebody does something wrong to you, that you make sure you present it to justice. And that's not easy. And I think that's where the biggest basis for a lot of these crybabies is coming from, is that they don't want to have to go through the legal process. They don't want to have to take it to court and get dragged through all this stuff. But all this stuff needs to happen, because it's beyond a reasonable doubt that you are innocent until proven guilty. And these are the foundations of the West. And if we lose that, we lose everything.
Again, you can support us and our work here by going to freedomreporters.com and donating. We do need your support. It's the only way that we can cover the bills here. And we appreciate the support we have had so far. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble descriptions, or you can go straight to the donation page at freedomreporters.com. And we can continue to bring you more content like this and content from the field as we endeavor to put reporters out into the field and bring you interviews like the one we had last night from the People's Convoy live at the Hagerstown Speedway outside Washington, D.C. And what I'd like to do now, Brendan, is bring up a video from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talking about banning critical race theory. This is a statement from him just, this was a little while ago, but still relevant to what has just happened there, where they have now banned CRT from being taught in the schools.
When this 1619 project came out, they're writing about the New York Times. They're saying students need to be taught that the American Revolution was fought because of slavery, which is it's false. We know why. They wrote pamphlets. They did committees of correspondence. People have written books about it. I mean, we know why they revolted against Great Britain. And so what it is an attempt to put modern day leftist ideology into the curriculum and really treat kids differently based on the color of their skin. They're trying to teach kids is that America.
Let me just bring that back. We missed that.
Taken to its logical extreme, what they're basically trying to teach kids is that America's Constitution, its founding, its institutions are rotten. Well, then what's the takeaway from that? I think that they're saying that we need to be a more leftist utopia, and I think they're using race the way the old Marxists used class, but ultimately they're trying to advance a very, I think, negative left-wing agenda. We actually, at our Board of Education, we banned critical race theory. And so people in corporate media and on the left, what do they say? They say, oh, these conservatives, they don't want to teach about slavery or anything like that, which is nonsense. Florida statutes say, teach about all these different things, including things like slavery and the civil rights movement. That is not critical race theory. I mean, that is just, those are historical facts. That's part of American history. And so we're doing all of that. But what we've said to teachers is, those are the standards. If you're departing from that and you're teaching kids based on race, or if you're doing any of this stuff, you're departing from the standards, and you could be disciplined as a result of that. At the end of the day, parents should have confidence that if they send their kid to school, they're being educated on the basics and not being polluted with things because somebody has an agenda to try to advance an ideology.
I think that's right on point.
Absolutely. Look, the history of the United States is a complicated thing, but Governor Ron DeSantis is absolutely correct that we know the reasons why the founding fathers of the United States went to war against Great Britain and had a huge uprising, which in my own opinion, I would say would be the most successful revolution in history. You don't have to look very far for those materials that he was talking about. There's Thomas Paine and the Rights of Man. Look it up. It's amazing work. It is over 200 years old, and it is worth a read. Very important. And we all have to understand that the first time ever in the history of the world that on a document it said, "We the people," and it says we're all equal. Although there's the oxymoron where that was not shared by African slaves at the time, I get it. It's weird. And you know what? The founding fathers, many of them were conflicted with it. It's complicated. It's weird. It goes deep. So much so that George Washington decreed it in his in his will after he died, that his wife Martha was to free all the slaves. The reason why it wasn't pushed heavily is because you would have had another war after you had a huge war with Britain. This is deep. It goes back far, man. And we have to appreciate the perspective of where America is and the very fact that we have this beautiful democracy that rose out of the ashes of 1776. Never to be repeated again on the same way.
I think we've taken huge steps backward when it comes to tolerance and living together and loving our fellow man and judging someone based on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. All of those ideals and ideas have been tossed aside in a misguided attempt to enact this new form of whatever it is, but to enact critical race theory. This thing going on in the Ontario, which will affect the schools. It won't just affect the schools, and it's not just affecting the schools. And we've thank God we see at least someone taking a stand down there in Florida, but in the rest of the country and in Canada, it is like cancer. They are rewriting our history. They are tearing down our statues. Everything is racist. It doesn't just stop with what they've taken away so far. It doesn't just stop with Gone with the Wind. It doesn't just stop with, the movies they've canceled so far. It doesn't just stop with tearing down a statue of Ryerson or Sir John A. Macdonald or
Queen Victoria.
Yeah, or
Captain
General
James
Lee.
Cook.
Right? Or
who was a Quaker,
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop there. We had to fly the Canadian flag at half staff for months. Why? It wasn't just because of the Indigenous schools issue. It was because Justin Trudeau wants us all to be ashamed of our country because he doesn't believe in it. When they say that there were hateful flags being flown at the truckers' protest in Ottawa. You know what the flag being flown there was? It wasn't swastikas. They sort of say, they don't really even just say that. It was Canadian flags everywhere, thousands and thousands of them. Because at the end of the day, it isn't just the Confederate flag. It isn't just a Nazi flag. It's the U.S. flag, the American flag, and the Canadian flag. They're all racists. They're all racist in their eyes, and they want it all gone. Because as far as they're concerned, the entire system is racist. We have systemic racism that is embedded throughout our society, through every institution, through all of our government, through our schools, our policing services. It's everywhere as far as they're concerned. And they use that as a tool to tear everything down. Everything. This is not about ending racism. This is about destroying our free and democratic society and replacing it with a Marxist, fascio-communist,
post-nation state.
whatever it is, a global post-nation state, which is really where we're heading. It's about tearing it all down so that they can build back better. That bill, C-67, is at the root of that effort. It's just one more step toward it. It's not about race. They don't care about ending racism because they're racists. They divide everybody into different groups. You're black, you're white, you're Hispanic, and they make it all about race. It's all about race. That's the definition of racism.
And you got to look at it this way. It's in their best interest to keep racism going because there's university programs that are training people to do just that, to keep these diversity officers and everything else. It's in their best interest. They're pumping out people by the thousands. They all get jobs out of it. I showed you the bill. Yeah. You've seen it. They're giving themselves jobs. They're making it up.
That's always an important aspect to what they do. Even if you're talking about left-wing or radical left people creating government bureaucracy, that's about job creation too for themselves. Create a new branch of government, hire a bunch of bureaucrats, hire your friends, shell out the money, or create an anti-racism group, call it what was it called again? Gen Z for Change, and apply for government grants and get them. And then everybody gets a paycheck. It is actually a form of corruption. And what they've learned to do, and they're very good at it, is to create organizations that are designed to tear down our society and even our government, to essentially overthrow our government with using government money, our tax dollars, to attack us from within. That's why it is a cancer. That's why Bill C-67 is so dangerous, because it undermines every aspect of Western society, everything that our country in Canada was founded upon. And we're seeing that same cancer spread through the United States. It's gone further in Canada, but it's well on its way to destroying the United States as well. We have to stop this and reverse it. Help us if you can. Go to freedomreporters.com and donate. You can also click on the hot link, and you can do that either at YouTube, Rumble, or on Facebook. And we'll be adding more platforms as we expand what we're doing. We're going to be launching a new website soon where we will archive all of these broadcasts, lay out more news stories for you there, more information. We've got other plans to expand our coverage as well. So we've got a lot that's going to be rolling out in the months ahead. A lot of work ahead of us in order to get to act as a counterbalance to these online propaganda groups. And we're here to help everyone get a little closer to the truth. And maybe you can just remind people to like and subscribe, Brendan.
Absolutely. Hey, give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. And just remember, every time you donate to Maverick News, a communist cries. So please go ahead. We absolutely appreciate all your support. And it has been absolutely enjoyable being along for the ride with all of you. And Rick, yourself as well. Yeah, I'm absolutely blown away with the leaps and bounds this channel has made, and the things that we've been going through. But we have so much in the works that we're going to be building upon. I'm excited. You guys should be excited. I can't wait for more things to come out.
Yeah, someone's asking for our email address, maverickmultimedia@mail.com. There you go in the comments. It's posted up there now. So some people are putting it up, so thank you for doing that. maverickmultimedia@mail.com. It's not Gmail, just mail.com is the domain. So if you want to send us anything, you can reach us there. And enjoyed your show, guys. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. The comments that keep coming in have been very, very positive, and that's very encouraging to us. So greatly appreciate the feedback and the donations. I hope we're making a difference out there. I think we are, as you know, all the independent journalists are, and the truckers are, and everybody is fighting for freedom in their own way, doing what they can. And I think this is what we do best. And so that's why we're here fighting on the information front, the information war. This is the new high-tech battleground in a digital era. And we are the antivirus program for your mind. So stay tuned, and there will be more to come. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with more from us, the Freedom Reporters, here on the Maverick News Channel.
We'll see you guys then. Thank you so much. Happy Friday.
Catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching.